ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask you to stand up, please, for the Lebanese national anthem and AUB march. Good morning, members of the Lebanese Parliament, Excellencies, AUB leadership and colleagues, and esteemed guests. On behalf of the Office of Strategic Health Initiatives, I would like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of our first International Forum on Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict. This is a very pivotal and timely forum, and we are very privileged to be hosting an esteemed group of local, regional, and international speakers. They will be shedding light on various topics and themes that are of great relevance in the rebuilding of health post-conflict. First, I would like to invite the Chair of the Organizing Committee and the Associate Vice President for Health Affairs, Dr. Shadi Saleh, to address the audience.
I cannot thank Noah enough, but I will thank her at that. So, good morning, everyone. Dear Excellencies, friends, colleagues, and guests. It is with pleasure that we are welcoming you at the opening ceremony of the Forum on Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict. When we started thinking about this forum, many started questioning the relevance and the timing of the topic, while the conflicts in many parts of the regions are still ongoing. The answer was easy. We have to. As much as the current humanitarian response to the different crises is important, it is equally, if not more important, that when the conflicts end, and they will end, inshallah, and when the refugees and displaced go back home, and they will, that there is at least a plan, if not a minimally functional healthcare system that will serve their needs. We have to remember that a pregnant woman will go back to her city or village and would need prenatal and delivery care. A man or woman who has diabetes will need their blood sugar tested, their meds dispensed, and their care coordinated. A child will need their vaccinations, and so on and so forth. We, in health and beyond, have a moral obligation first, and a professional obligation as well, to think, plan, convene, and potentially execute in a way that would allow these individuals to get the care that they need. Questions on who would pay, what to build first, where to get human resources, how to get human resources back, how to be innovative, effective, and efficient. All of these will have to be asked and hopefully start to be answered. And this Rebuilding Health Forum at AUB will initiate the process. We at AUB are delighted to have many stakeholders be part of the discussion and later the plan. I would like to invite everyone involved in any way in health, especially those who question the timing and the relevance, to attend and engage with our experts at the forum. And allow me a quasi-final note. AUB is celebrating its 150 years of existence this year. Actually, yesterday was the closing ceremony. I humbly believe that the reason for its existence and longevity lies in the optimism and the sense of purpose of its people throughout history. It is that optimism and sense of purpose that are to this day the basis of what we do at AUB. AUB is organizing the Rebuilding Health Forum because we are optimistic about the future and because we have been, are, and will continue to be committed to serving this region, our region, and its people, our people. I will end this section of my speech with a quote that I'm using quite frequently. A vision without a plan is fantasy, and hope is not a plan. So that is why I am happy to announce that the Office of Strategic Health Initiatives at AUB will launch a Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict Program, REPAC. Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict Program, REPAC. We will share more about the program with all of you in the coming days, but we will invite all to join us in this important endeavor. In the end, I would like to thank a few people and officers who made all of this possible. I would like to thank AUB leadership for its continuous support and encouragement. The co-chairs of this forum, Dr. Rima Habib from the Faculty of Health Sciences, Dr. Farah Naja from the Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences, and Dr. Faisal Park from the Faculty of Medicine and Construction. I would like to thank the Offices of Advancement, the money people, and Communication, the Office of Continuing Medical Education, the wonderful Dalia, our partners, and the SHI team, especially the lady who is sitting on my left, Ms. Noor Hassash, our Director of Monitoring. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy and benefit from the Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict at AUB. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sadeh. Next, I would like to invite AUB's Executive Vice President and Raja and Khouridin, Dr. Muhammad Saif, to say a few words.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, AUB community, and esteemed guests, we are gathered here today to embark on a new journey with the purpose of putting a roadmap to rebuilding health not only in Lebanon, but also in the region and beyond. We cannot but admit that in order to be able to implement change as an institution, we have to build resilient and prepared health system that provides service delivery in crisis and post-crisis context. Bold transformations require bold decisions, and a dialogue of the future says it all. The initiative we are launching today proves that we can be a viable institution that undertakes major health challenges that come along the way in forward thinking. Building on our AUBMC 2020 vision success and through its 6th path, We were able to support the health of local and regional patients in need by ensuring their access to care. AUBMC's community service efforts span across all of Lebanon to provide emergency assistance to displaced patients who arrived from the different Arab countries, especially Syria and Iraq and others. Mobile medical services and other aid to refugees have been established and treated approximately 9,000 children and provided primary medical services as well as urgent care to acute cases that can be treated on site. Extensive effort and progress has been made towards raising funds directly with several volunteer groups to support the treatment of needy patients, especially displaced citizens from neighboring countries. With more than $10 million spent on supporting needy patients from various sources in the year of 2014-15, AUB has been able to treat hundreds of patients and launch over 40 initiatives across several departments to provide excellent health care to the most vulnerable patients at our medical center. It's through adopting an impactful, efficient, and innovative focus, AUB has wholeheartedly chosen the route of commitment to its legacy, its people, and its community as a whole. Advancement can have different faces, and AUB's vision on Health 2025, that was announced by the President, is but an attestation to our continuous and pioneering endeavor that would mark healthcare systems in Lebanon, the region, and beyond for many years to come. We are moving from an era of delivering care to rebuilding health. The symposium says it's post-conflict. I happen to disagree with my friend Shadi Saleh. I don't believe there will be a post-conflict era. Conflicts are ever shifting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sayed. Our next speaker is the 16th President of the American University of Beirut, Dr. Fadl Khouri.
Thank you very much. Challenging part of the job is always reacting to what Mo says and keeping it interesting. First of all, I want to extend a very warm AUB welcome to this extraordinarily important gathering. It's important for AUB, for Lebanon, for the region, and for the globe. I would really like to sincerely thank the organizers of this international forum on rebuilding health post-conflict. They hail from one of the newest and leanest, but already one of the most impactful offices at AUB, the Office of Strategic Health Initiatives, which we founded earlier this year. I want to particularly thank Associate VP Shadi Saleh, who heads this initiative. This really is his vision as much as it is mine, or Iman Wahid's, or Nana Hwalla's, or Mosayed's. And I want to thank his extraordinarily hard-working colleagues, Noha Hashash, Marlene Mnassa, and Jana Rahal. I did say it was a lean team. And the SHI steering committee that's chaired by EVP and Dean of Medicine Hamad Saeed. This really has been an extraordinary effort. You can see that Noha is much happier doing this than reviewing individual departments, which he used to do with me and Bushra Rahad. So thank you very much. More fun work. So AUB's been a leader in health really since its inception. If you look back at our history, and I think there are very few people in this year who are unfamiliar with the university's ethos and values. So I think probably in a week where we had the Merjdabat contest, Madam Dean, I should quit playing amateur historian. But the Faculty of Medicine is just 1 year younger than the university. We finished the celebrations for the 150th of the university, and we started, and I know Dr. Runfeld's working hard on the history, the 150th celebrations of the Faculty of Medicine will start in a month. So we had a hospital since 1902, established the first school of nursing in 1905 in the whole region. When the Great War struck and famine cost Mount Lebanon about a third of its citizens, faculty members and the Blisses and the Dodges did everything possible to organize relief efforts, working with the Red Cross, the Ottoman Red Crescent, the YMCA, soup kitchens to make sure that people had a chance to survive. Indeed, this was probably one of the major determining factors in the transition of the university from being a proselytizing institution to one whose focus was on humanitarian character building and support, all grounded all the while in a secular liberal arts agenda. The Second World War and its aftermath, with by far the greatest number of deaths ever, more than 50 million civilian deaths and clearly over 30 million military deaths, meant that the university needed to adjust for the rebuilding of the whole region. And fundamental to that were the establishment of new faculties. Faculties of, initially there was a school of public health, I believe, before it became a faculty. Faculty of agriculture and faculty of engineering. So these were our attempts as a university to deal with the new reality. Again, rebuilding post-conflict, post-global conflict. The Faculty of Health Sciences, which it became formally in 1978 when Eugene Gangarosa was the dean, is by far the finest in the Arab world. First to get accreditation, and it's an exemplar in impactful community-based research, and in fact in getting that research enacted in public. And it's not that different in Lebanon than it is in the US, although the forces may be a little bit more malignant here, which is where you get these laws that are for society's improvement, which the great men of state fight against tooth and nail until you finally pass it with their sort of subtle, I know Martin's getting nervous here, with their subtle acquiescence, and then you give them all the credit so it becomes law. This is legislation, the world around. And this faculty is extraordinarily skilled at that, and I think Dr. Saleh has a special gift for this particular area. So to break new ground in health, you actually have to break new ground in the laws of the land. We believe, I think it's fair to say, at AUB, that all citizens of Lebanon and the refugees from Syria, from Palestine, and everywhere, they deserve great health care. And this university has a history of great medicine and health care, from Ibrahim Demir's first book on heart surgery, to the service during the carnage of the Civil War, to engineering-based solutions that have helped us restrict access to some of the world's most deadliest weapons, including the weapon of tobacco. This has been one of our prime drivers as an institution. We are all about the health of future generations, physical and mental health. And our faculty are leaders. They've established hospitals and universities from Iran to the Gulf, all the way into Asia and all over the world, with some impact even in China and of course in the West. But this is a period where the challenges of rebuilding health are different than they were during the Marshall Plan post-World War II. They're different than they were even after World War I. The conflicts in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Palestine in particular have been so devastating, so all-consuming, that basic tenets of 20th century civilization, like clean water, like electricity, like a roof over your head, like the ability to step outside without endangering your life, have evaporated in many of these countries. So we're building health in the context of building a society. The two must go hand in hand, and that's something I think that AUB does exceptionally well. We're seeing the rise of preventable diseases in the countries at war and in the countries that are not technically at war. If you look at the Gulf countries, they are having epidemics of diabetes and other chronic diseases because of the level of inactivity that they see. So in addition to the psychological trauma and physical trauma we're seeing in the nations at war, I would argue that all of the Arab countries and the region that we serve need rebuilding of basic healthcare systems. From that perspective, in spite of the war, the health system that the Lebanese government has developed post-war is actually a fairly sound one to go by, with access to care being relatively good. If you look at the data in the last few years, child mortality has declined in this country. All sorts of parameters that you use to measure quality of the care of a population are on the improvement. That's true in large parts of Lebanon, but it's absolutely not true in many countries in the rest of the Arab world, including some which are not at war. What I like about this particular responsibility that I've had for a year and a half, what I love about this remarkable faculty is they rise to challenges. They rise to challenges, which is one of the reasons that we are the leaders of this Lancet Commission on Syria, which is co-led by Harvard School of Public Health Professor Jennifer Leaning, our own Dean of Health Sciences, Iman Douahed, and Dr. Samir Jabour of FHS. And as Dr. Leaning said last week, in terms of health and human rights, the Syrian crisis is now at the epicenter of global discussions. So as we think of ourselves as a driver of rebuilding healthcare regionally, we are also a driver of global solutions. And part of that solution has been the virtually unmatched track record of the Dean EVP of Medicine in bringing back people from the United States, often at their peak or before their peak, which is even better, to conduct the bulk of their career here at AUB and its medical center. This is really remarkable. I love the article that he and Kamal Badr wrote in Nature Middle East a few months ago. So bringing people back, reversing the brain drain, serving real time to reduce morbidity and mortality and trauma, as Hassan has done, and his team of plastic surgeons have done in Gaza, playing a key role in health education and school enrollment campaigns, as the Faculty of Health Sciences have done, and restricting child labor or public smoking, tackling the sort of subtleness of the ergili that I am disheartened to see more and more young people using. That's what our faculty do. In 2010, our board, inspired by the possibility that we can make an impact through our medical center, adopted the 2020 vision of AUBMC to make it the leading medical center in Lebanon in the region by providing outstanding medical care. The Dean of Medicine has built a remarkable place, continuing and accelerating the work of his predecessor, Dean Nadim Qurtas, in which a great center is slowly becoming greater. But I think at the end of the day, we have to think of ourselves as a great university in and of Lebanon that serves the whole world. We like to think that we serve the Arab world, but to go back to Dr. Leaning's comment, and I think my guess is you'll probably hear this from Christina, this is the greatest crisis in the world right now, the refugee crisis. So by serving the Syrian refugee crisis and the reconstruction of health in these countries, we are serving all of the world. And that's the way we think of AUB. AUB is a world-class university. We want to build strengths in basic science, chemistry, biology, physics, computer science, the humanities, big data, applied sciences, and agriculture and nutrition, so that through our Office of Regional External Programs, we can export these solutions not for profit, but to make a difference in this part of the world. To do that, it's exactly this sort of collaborative enterprise that you need to bring people together. Because if we can't bring people together in the university to work on a common vision that excites, I think, most of us, then how are we going to bring the external stakeholders? So I want to end by really applauding the team that put this conference together. I think it's admirable. Pele, and now I'm badly off script. Pele once said when he came to visit Lebanon as sponsored by Coca-Cola, that he thought the Lebanese soccer players were fine, but he wasn't used to 11 players, including the goalkeeper, converging on the ball. I think that this is the start of people holding their positions and working together to build great teams, because great teams win World Cups, and this is a great team. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, it is our distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage our guest of honor, Her Excellency, Head of the European Union Delegation in Lebanon, Ambassador Christina Lassin.
Thank you very much, Sabah Khair. Thank you for inviting me here today. I think we all, a particular thanks to AUB for organizing this conference. I think we all welcome this initiative as an intent to create a scientific and operational dialogue where all the different actors can get together and try to find some answers to this huge challenge we just heard about in the opening remarks. How we develop a responsive and sustainable health system in the post-conflict era for the region. And whether that post-conflict is going to be a post-conflict or just be taken over by other conflicts, we'll have to see. But I certainly do agree with President Hori that it is the greatest crisis the world is facing right now. And AUB is doing a remarkable job at trying to come up with the usable and suitable solutions to that. So thank you very much for that. Because building resilient health systems is, of course, a global imperative. Not only is the best way to ensure that disruptions no longer become disasters, but investing in resilient health systems also yields tremendous benefits in times of peace, such as better routine healthcare and economic productivity. This is why the European Union and its member states are aiming to support the strengthening of comprehensive health systems in non-EU countries. Since these countries and their governments hold primary responsibility in addressing health challenges, this will require strengthening the capacity to develop, regulate, implement and monitor effective national health policies and strategies. And this is why we from the European Union side seek to ensure optimal access to health services for populations in fragile contexts, emergency and humanitarian situations, and in peace and stabilization processes. But I think, as we were just talking about before, when we talk about post-conflict health today and in the region, I think we all tend to think primarily about Syria, our neighbor, less than 1 hour's drive from here, where devastating reports and pictures reach us almost every day, showing the destruction of health institutions and killing of medical personnel, all of which make us aware of the huge challenges that we face, not only today, but also once a solution to the Syrian conflict is hopefully found. Before the Syrian crisis, the EU was actually playing an active role in the Syrian health sector by providing assistance for reform and capacity building. We also had the European Investment Bank supporting and functioning of hospitals across Syria. But unfortunately, as you can all imagine, the conflict has destroyed the remarkable past achievements, both in terms of human capital and overall infrastructure. We're still trying to work inside Syria under the current conditions, where we try to focus on increasing the quality of services and expanding them to reach those in need. Special attention is paid to the disability aspect, which has touched almost 1 million people. And to do so, in 2016 alone, the European Union has allocated almost 20 million euros for the rehabilitation of the health sector in all of Syria to a joint humanitarian and development programming approach with our humanitarian colleagues. So working through international NGOs, I should stress. However, looking closer to home, Lebanon has obviously had its own challenges with post-conflict health after the civil war. And now again, with the crisis next door and more than 1 million Syrian refugees here, the Lebanese health sector, in particular the public health system, has been faced with new challenges. This is why, since the beginning of the Syrian crisis, the European Union has been the main donor to the health sector in Lebanon. And let me be very frank here, before the Syrian crisis, the European Union was actually not engaged with the Syrian health sector, Lebanese health sector at all. I think it's fair to say that our cooperation in this sector and with the Ministry of Public Health was spurred by a crisis, but ending up being a positive story benefiting a large part of the Lebanese health system. Over the last 2 years, together, we have achieved great results, but most importantly, we believe that we have contributed to improving access to healthcare and proven that we can build trust between the public sector and the citizens in need of good public services. The European Union's support comes as a necessary urgent response to the tremendous task Lebanon has taken upon itself by welcoming the highest number of refugees per capita in the world. The number of people seeking refuge in Lebanon has by far overstretched the country's already fragile infrastructure and social services, including in the health sector. And the public health sector was already facing major challenges before the Syrian crisis. It is estimated that about 28% of Lebanese are vulnerable and need financial support to access minimum levels of health care, while at least 70% of Syrian refugees need some level of humanitarian assistance for health care. Therefore, our support serves both for the benefit of Lebanese host communities and for the refugees. And I think our support is visible all over Lebanon. Those who benefit from the EU support may have visited one of the more than 200 primary health centers and public hospitals, which have received new equipment, free medicine, and routine vaccinations for children, as well as affordable consultations and health awareness sessions. Others may have received training, such as doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and health workers. And the humanitarian offices of the EU is supporting access for Syrian refugees also to secondary health care and covering life-saving medical and surgical cases. And in addition to this, as sort of a spin-off of this new support, the European Union is also supporting the Ministry of Health to reinforce and enlarge the primary healthcare centers network. Since 2014, the European Union has implemented projects for a total of 86 million euros in the health sector, contributing significantly to the Lebanese authorities' ability to meet the basic needs of Syrian refugees and vulnerable Lebanese caused by the Syrian crisis here. All of this shows that since the beginning of the Syrian crisis, the European Union has made health one of our key areas in supporting Lebanon to address the impact the Syrian crisis has had on this sector. And this support will continue in the future. I'm happy to announce that just 2 days ago, the so-called Mandat Trust Fund, the board met in Brussels and approved a package of 62 million euros for health projects in Lebanon. This is good news for this sector, which, as I mentioned before, has been particularly affected by the crisis and by the lack of adequate financial resources. We're fully aware of the extraordinary challenges that Lebanon is currently facing with regards to the health sector. We'll continue to stand by the Lebanese people and assist in tackling the challenge of the Syrian crisis. We'll also continue to work with Lebanon afterwards to improve its public services for its citizens. The European Union would like to encourage all relevant stakeholders who are gathered here today to continue your efforts in strengthening the resilience of the health sector. This would provide an opportunity to bring together political dialogue, humanitarian assistance, and development cooperation in a comprehensive, coherent, and effective approach. We wish this to apply not only to the health sector, but also to other sectors providing services complementary to the health ones, for example, protection and education and so on. The forum here today go in this direction, and once again, I would like to welcome this initiative. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. This concludes the opening ceremony. And next up, we will have our keynote speech with Dr. Bernard Kouchner, who is the former French Minister of Foreign Affairs and the co-founder of Doctors Without Borders. He will be discussing the social and political transition to post-conflict.
It's certainly easier to read somebody else's speech, but thank you for staying. Well, you know, thank you for inviting me to this very, very famous university. It's not easy to talk about this particular subject. I thought I was supposed to talk about global, but well, now it's post-conflict rebuilding health. So, just to tell you that I've been involved in this particular beautiful and difficult country since '75. 40 years of health in a way, but 40 years of war. So, thank you for coaching I was lucky enough to found Doctors Without Borders and Doctors of the World, and all this organization working with you in Lebanon. And it happens that I've been 3 times the Minister of Health in France, and last time, Foreign Minister. I have learned a lot in practicing medicine. Practicing diplomacy, I didn't learn a lot. But well, it was interesting. Because unfortunately, this new science, this new medical diplomacy is just growing, not enough. But it was, in one time during the 70s and 80s and etc., a very large part of the French influence or the French work in the rest of the world. It happens also that I have been in charge of Kosovo during 2 years in the name of United Nations, Secretary General. And it was also a very good exercise to rebuild health in a place where there was no health. So the first remark, thank you for that, but rebuilding health in a post-conflict means that the conflict is over. And the conflict here is not over. But in a way, I'm very pleased to tell you this very strange manner when this particular country, Lebanon, was at war, and it was during years and years and years, the surrounding was not. And now, you are in a peacetime. Really, it's a real contrast. You are in a peacetime, and all over, war is going on. So this particular contrast is very interesting, but is it possible to set up for a reflection in a work and a program and a project in a time where you were, and still you are, receiving so much refugees? Yes, as the excellent ambassador for European Union told us, 40% of the refugees, more or less, are taken in charge, medically speaking. But you were able, congratulations to all of you, you were able in this country to receive close to 2 million refugees. And my good country, France, was unable to receive 10,000. So, this is a lesson for us. And as I'm a bit aware, yes, I have to admit you, really, the proportion of people you were receiving in good condition, held by UNHCR, held by the NGOs, etc. Yes, but you did. And where we in Europe, apart from Germany and apart from Sweden,
when we were deciding not to give asylum to the poor people crossing the Mediterranean Sea, with your sea, but my sea also on the other side. It was a shame. And I was really suffering. And just to remind you, or remind me, when we were helping the boat people in the China Sea, 12,000 kilometers from France, we were able to receive 150,000 Vietnamese. But unfortunately for these people coming to you, they were Muslim. Unfortunately, we had a sort of permanent fear of those people. Unfortunately for them, and it was one of the reasons. Well, the excellent ambassador, EU ambassador, is not here. She left. But, oh, you did not. Thank you. So you remember that the European Union answer was not convenient at all, apart from some countries I quoted already. So, now coming back to this subject, global health, is it possible to set up a project when we have changed completely our habits with Doctors Without Borders and with Doctors of the World and others coming from England, coming from Holland, coming from everywhere? We were supposed to take care in conflict of emergency medicine, emergency surgery, emergency medicine. And it was not at all our possibilities, project of possibilities, to look about the future. Not enough. Now with what has been, let's say, proposed by the UN system and by European Union too, the Millennium Goals came with very particular project on medicine. And it was more or less a success, not complete success, but it was a dream to believe in a complete success. It was a progress, a large progress. We were discovering that, we knew that, but the global health was completely linked to development. Health without development is not possible. Health without development and progress in development, it means education, it means money, it means investment, was not possible at all, or not enough, even in our country, even in the United States. So, to have an idea, a global idea, on what is the most convenient or the, let's say, best or, system, needs to talk not only about specialties, progress, research. Yes, these three items are very important, but to look about health insurance. Without health insurance, there is no global health. This is impossible. So, it's certainly very difficult for you and for me and for us to talk about a sort of global health insurance, sécurité sociale, to have a big skyscraper in Brussels or somewhere, to get money enough to organize in all the countries of the world a better access to care. No, this is not possible. But I want to remind you that we did already the beginning of that. It was in 97, 98, 10 years after the beginning, not 20, but 15 years after the beginning of HIV/AIDS epidemic, pandemic. we imagine, and the European people were not far from that, and UN people and Kofi Annan, etc. We start offering or deciding to offer to the people in the world and mainly in Africa, because HIV/AIDS was very important. Targeting Africa was absolutely normal, but we decided in '97 in Abidjan Congress about HIV/AIDS Congress to start having sort of money coming from the nation devoted for treating the people who are not our patients. Our patients. This is very, very, let's say, dangerous to say my patient for the doctor. I'm a doctor, I know that. My patient, no. The patients are not, let's say, it's completely your property. We have to talk about the patient generally speaking. So we start offering Solidarité Thérapeutique Internationale. It was money coming, I was Minister of Health, sorry to say, I'm not arrogant enough to tell you that it was only my money, my ID, my démarche, no. But well, the money was coming from the Minister of Health, not from the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we start having a sort of important amount of money devoted to start treating. It was the time of the coming of the retrovirus drugs, and we had some money to treat some people. And it was the beginning of the Global Fund. Then, apart from UN, but with the help of the UN system, we start setting up the Global Fund, not only for HIV/AIDS, but tuberculosis and malaria. And it was a kind of social insurance for some particular people. At the beginning, we had 1 billion, 2 billion. Now it's $20 billion. And we took care of 6, 7, 8, 9 millions of people. So just to tell you, it's not unimaginable to get one little percentage of the national budget reserved, let's say, organized, step by step, starting at the base with some particular disease or vaccination. Okay, I know about UNICEF, I know about the efforts of some particular NGOs or foundations, of course, Bill Gates, etc. But this idea of reserving in the new sustainable development goals, taking in account, of course, the climate change, of course, the new pandemics, of course, the new virus coming to us, like Ebola. We did. Not enough, but we did. And it was a global effort of research, a global effort of treatment. Okay, the two tentatives of vaccination are not completely right. This is not the end, but in 3-4 years we were able to set up a sort of answer. So this idea of global health, with all the communication, tourism, trade, etc., this idea of having a sort of general view, not only on communicable diseases, but mainly on communicable disease at the beginning, is not a dream. We have to work on that. Otherwise, of course, this is very important here in Lebanon to think about the new perspective. And this morning, I just visited the cytogenetic labs of St. Joseph University. That is not to say that you are not alone in this American university, but just to say the huge difference about some particular places where the medicine is at the top and the general condition of the people here. I'm not talking about only the refugees, but also the Lebanese people. If you are a poor Lebanese family, you don't have access without money to the health system. This is not, I'm not insulting you, just a fact. And that is absolutely important to start offering to the people this idea, the vision of having for their families an access, a minimum of a basic access to, the modern medicine. Without that, even in the United States, I was telling you, President Obama insisted and insisted, I don't know what you're thinking about Obama's presidency and the new presidency coming, my dear, but we'll see. And so, it was a success also for the middle class people who had no access, American people, or very difficult access to the health system. Including in my country, was been named as, compared to the others, not bad and a good, in a way, system of security social. It was not completely clear for the people to get access. So this is a huge effort. Don't try now to recreate a perfect health system with hospitals and with good, without having the possibility to pay for that. This is the main thing. The rest is nothing. Of course, the fantastic progress of medicine are welcome. And certainly about the work of Doctors Without Borders, I'm very happy. I was the founder, but at the beginning, it was in '71, before my coming to your country. It was impossible to think about the evolution of the health system. We were turned to emergency surgery and to the beginning of sort of access to outpatient patients, etc. It was nothing compared to what's going with these new NGOs. The progress is fantastic. But there is no progress in health insurance. So who is able? In a way, it's a bit easier to get access to the health care in war conditions for certain people. And this is a shame. And of course, it was not always easy to impose these NGOs, medical NGOs, facing, of course, the medical staff of the people there. We were not paid, and for the people, for the, let's say, normal doctors and normal surgeons and all the medical staff, 4 million doctors, nurses, maid nurses, etc. Why are they staying in the rich countries when they are coming for their studies? Why? Because there are not enough paid in their country. And I understand that. If you have a family a month, $120 a month. So they refuse to come to my so-called hospital because, of course, they prefer private practice and to be paid under the counter. So I had to double by 2, and they were receiving $240 a month, which is just nothing if they have their family. So that's the second problem. Okay, to organize and to educate the staff we needed in the world. But we have also to find the money to pay the people. So I tried in my country, because some Guinean doctors, very well trained, the Guinean doctors in their university in Conakry, not bad, but they were staying in France. And in France, they were unable to practice completely freely. Otherwise, they have to return to the bottom of their studies. So there is a real problem of, let's say, a racist problem. You see, a rude word, but well, in a way. Huh? So the second point is to offer good condition of living to the local doctors. And not this huge difference in between the medicine for the rich people, very well paid, and the medicine for the poor people, very badly paid. I don't want to tell you, well, if you insist, the story of my life, but it was, in all the countries I was in charge of, in fact, nothing, but I was working, it was the same problem. Medicine for the rich, a good medicine. Medicine for the poor, nothing. Education is the third problem. Education, not of the doctors, not of the medical staff. Education of the people. Because the post-conflict health should be a preventive medicine. Preventive medicine. This is not only a word. This is not only for the poor people. But in my country, in a way, a bit less rich than before, but it's coming back. In my country, 40%. I can sing also with the microphone. And so, in my country, 40% of the population refuse or doubt about vaccination because they are so rich. You have nothing to pay for the vaccination, so they refuse. Vaccination was the boss, not only because it comes from Pasteur, a big French man, but because it was the circle of the progress in medicine. And of course, vaccination, even with the efforts of, I told you about UNICEF and the others, this is the beginning. So education for the people, not for the doctors only, education for the people in order to receive the basic. You were talking about tobacco. In a war, start a campaign against tobacco. This is a bit difficult. So the conditions are precise and different between all the countries. Education to the people in order to offer them prevention is key. Look, another and the last example, because you want to go to your lunch, which is normal, is what happened with another time, HIV/AIDS. Because HIV/AIDS, this is not because I'm addicted to that period, but it was the beginning of the real pressure and the real success on NGOs against HIV/AIDS. And they forced us to consider diseases like something very important because the people, one by one, the people, and they had their opinion, and we had to listen to them. And the pressure of the NGOs, ACT UP and the AIDS and the other, was so efficient, that we had to consider for the rest to not to use, but to serve and to use in a way the pressure coming from the public opinion. And if we want, after the conflict, and I hope you are completely and definitively and for eternity after the conflict, I also, we have to use this force, immense force of the public opinion. And on that particular and antiretrovirus drugs, we had this process in South Africa. And this is very delicate. I don't want to be only a leftist. It was, you know, the problem was that the labs that offer these drugs, very efficient drugs, against HIV, I'm not talking about tuberculosis, but this is the same problem, at a very high price. And at the very high price, we, European Union, people, we were able to answer, and we were able to buy the drugs. But in the third world, they were not at all. So they were absolutely against the law, illegal people. It has started in Brazil, you remember, to set up and to homemade, if I may say so, the same drugs against the liberalization. And we were successful in the trial of South Africa because the pharmaceutical drugs were clever enough to understand that it was no longer possible, because it was a sentence to death not to have access to these drugs. Okay, that was a very good progress indeed. But we don't have to say that it will last very long like that, because the research was also coming from these labs, pharmaceutical drugs labs. So we have to find with them, not against them, a sort of difficult medium term. Sûr?
An entente cordiale.
Yes. Donc, voilà. Are you listening to a French language? You're Lebanese or not?
Yes.
Ah, bah alors pourquoi je parle anglais? Ah, bah, c'est incroyable, on m'a demandé de parler anglais. Sorry, you are speaking French. Bon, alors je finis. En français, s'il vous plaît. Donc, par exemple, j'ai aussi visité le laboratoire Mérieux. Hein. Il y a des efforts qui sont faits, beaucoup d'efforts. Mais il manque une stratégie globale pour développer ce nouvel aspect du développement et de la santé en même temps. Je vais très lentement. Du développement et de la santé en même temps. Et c'est ça l'avenir de la médecine. C'est pas l'hyperspécialité, bien sûr, c'est aussi l'hyperspécialité pour les maladies rares, etc. Bien sûr, je ne néglige pas ça. Mais tant qu'en Afrique en particulier, mais pas en Afrique seulement, nous ne pourrons pas offrir à ces Africains qui ont une croissance exceptionnelle, qui ont une croissance économique, mais qui ont aussi une croissance démographique. Est-ce qu'un médecin sérieux ou un économiste sérieux peut négliger l'aspect démographique de notre planète? Or, nous n'en parlons jamais. Je pense que c'est une grosse erreur. On pense donc qu'il y aura 2 milliards d'Africains, sinon plus en 2050. Est-ce qu'on va continuer comme ça? J'ai rien contre les Africains. Nous sommes 7 milliards sur la Terre et ça va continuer. Donc il faut réfléchir à ça aussi. Alors, cette santé mondiale, je termine, ne se conçoit pas sans développement. Développement économique qui permettra de participer, même si on imagine une assurance maladie aidée par les organisations des Nations Unies, par l'Union européenne, par tout le monde, tous les pays, ce développement économique devra permettre à chaque pays de participer à ce fonds global. 1%. Vous savez que les recommandations, c'est d'avoir pour la santé au moins 4 à 6% du budget national, et dans les pays qui partent de si bas, plus encore, aidés peut-être par les banques de développement, comme il y en a en Afrique, comme il y en a en Asie, etc. Donc, je pense que pour répondre un peu à la question de Rebuilding Health Post-Conflict, même si ici c'est moins important qu'en Afrique, beaucoup moins important, c'est quand même une Global Health Insurance pensée. Et puis, les perspectives du développement doivent tenir compte aussi du Sustainable Development. Alors, je ne vais pas vous faire, etc. Mais enfin, les virus qui se... Vous savez que le paludisme commence dans le sud de la France. Et que ce sont les voyages, et ce sont les moustiques qui voyagent par avion, et puis il y a les résistances au paludisme, comme vous le savez, très importantes. Donc, tout ça fait partie de la planète. Pas seulement les pays riches et les pays en développement. Tout ça fait partie de la planète. Ensuite, il y a une santé mondiale qui est en train de se concevoir, surtout chez les économistes, mais il n'y a pas de conscience nationale, et c'est la dernière chose, suffisante dans les pays en développement, parce que, pour des raisons qui tiennent à la période coloniale, on n'a pas pensé au développement de la santé comme on pensait au développement des routes ou des ministères ou des gouvernements. Malheureusement, c'était de la charité. Je n'ai rien contre la charité, j'en ai fait toute ma vie, je n'ai rien contre la solidarité. Médecins sans frontières, Médecins du monde, ce sont des entreprises de solidarité. Mais ce n'est pas suffisant pour organiser soi-même une santé. Have a good lunch. C'est pas suffisant pour organiser une santé globale qui est la seule réponse, après les conflits ou sans conflit, à l'expression moderne d'une prise en charge et d'un système de soins qui ne peut forcément être que mondial. En ce moment, en Russie, même dans la région de Saint-Pétersbourg, même à Moscou, les malades du sida ne sont pas traités. Et pourtant, à côté de chez vous, à Alep, l'Union soviétique, non, la Russie, pardon, est capable de bombarder les gens qui sont des civils dans la ville. Je trouve que ce contraste devrait nous faire réfléchir. Thank you very much for all of you.